What's up, guys? We're finally back with some more UFC fights, UFC 224, and actually the entire weekend. The main card is pretty solid. The prelims is kind of lacking. Alves versus Eliev, which is a pretty good fight. Lineker versus Albini. Mutanche versus Robertson. That's either going to be a pretty lackluster fight or a barn burner. So we're just going to cover the main card right now. So we're going to go to Vitor Belfort versus Lyoto Machida. Old veterans, man. Completely out of their primes, both of them. Chins have withered away. Vitor's lost his speed ever since the end of the TRT era. He's just not the same fighter that he used to be. Lyoto, I would say, kept some of the skills that he had. He's still pretty quick. He's still pretty precise. He just can't take a punch like he used to, and his timing seems to be off. That could also be with the layoff that he had when he came back to fight Derek Brunson. So when we look at Vitor Belfort, we all know he's a very quick, explosive counter-striker, looks for his openings, usually backs up, and that's going to be very detrimental when he's fighting Lyoto in a way, because Lyoto also likes to bait opponents, but when he's allowing Lyoto to dictate the pace of the fight, which I could see happening because Lyoto has in the past been the one that would be willing to lead the dance, and that could be bothersome for a lot of opponents as he has the opportunity now to go in and out instead of just baiting them into this space where he can land his counter shots, his intercepting shots, like he did with Ryan Bader and a bunch of guys like that. Vitor Belfort, very explosive high-kicking game now that he has. He doesn't really set them up, but he's really good at timing them in open space. He's one of the few guys that can catch opponents completely unexpected without throwing any other punch before the kick. He just throws a naked kick out there. And the reason for that is he's really good at feeling out the first round. He knows which way the opponent likes to move. He finds out their tendencies just from movement and footwork, and then he's able to intercept them and blindside them with these kicks. But he's more of a counter puncher, though. He doesn't really explode and force through things. He just allows the opponent to come in at him, and he looks for a shot through that. So you got two counter strikers, so that can either be a very fun fight, especially if one of them lands on the other, or it can be pretty lackluster. Vitor also has a pretty dangerous guard game, quick with the submissions, but once you get past his guard, he is extremely vulnerable. He doesn't really know what to do at times, like you saw with Chris Weidman and Jacare. When they're able to pass that guard of his, he's just like a fish out of water. I'm not saying Lyoto's going to be that type of fighter, but Lyoto has shown to have pretty good takedowns at times, especially from his sumo wrestling experience. Very unique takedowns. Very strong hips, very fast twitch muscle fiber, catches opponents completely unexpected, like you saw in the Gegard Mousasi fight. And he could go that route in this fight, but I do see it being more of a stand-up fight. When we go Lyoto Machida, probably the most traditional karate fighter you'll ever see in MMA, or at least at the highest level of MMA. Very long stance, good at using in and out movements, excellent with timing the left hand. He'll switch stances at times. He has very powerful kicks, snap-like. Now, they're not Muay Thai style where he's stepping through with a lot of force, but there's so much speed into his kicks. He's able to snap in on the opponent with those front kicks or the high kicks just from his stance. And the surprise factor really catches them. He's not always a counter striker, though. He will force things out there. He'll give some feints out there at the opponent, look at their openings through that. Very similar to what Anderson Silva used to do. He's really good with the lead foot sweep to the left hand down the middle. He's done that plenty of times in his career as well, which I think could be open on a guy like Vitor, who likes to just wait on the opponent, look for what they're doing. And those unorthodox striking techniques from Machida could catch Vitor unexpectedly. So my prediction for the fight, I'm going to go with Lyoto Machida. I'm going to go by a second round knockout. I think the first round is going to be a complete feeling out process. Might be a very boring first round, but I think once the second round kicks off, I think they both are going to believe that they found each other's weaknesses or each other's openings, and they're going to try to exploit that. And that's when you're going to see whose tactics, whose strategy is going to work here. And the footwork, Vitor will move when he's getting pressured, but he's not that fast, and he has a very obvious footwork pattern, so I don't think he'll be able to keep up with Lyoto on the feet as well. So then we go to John Lineker versus Bryan Kelleher. This is a very interesting fight. You got John Lineker, who is just a brawler. He defines how far a brawler can get at the highest level of MMA, even coming up from flyweight. I mean, he is one of the best examples of a smaller fighter going up a weight class and developing even more power than he had. John Lineker really does have hands of stone. Not technical really anywhere. He walks forward at the opponent, walks him down relentlessly. I mean, there's no backstep to this guy. He will throw haymakers, hooks. He doesn't set up things too much. He wants to draw you into a brawl. Doesn't throw too many kicks as well. His guillotine is by far the best submission he has, and he will jump to that like you saw in the Francisco Rivera fight. Lineker also likes to go to one specific combo, or the start of his combinations, is he'll throw the jab and he'll leap in behind it to get in the distance as the opponent is naturally going to be backing up to him throughout the entire fight. So he gets into the cage when he does that, and then he just traps him with the hooks and the haymakers and the uppercuts, and just gets them covering up, and they just kind of get stuck in there. Eventually, they're either going to have to trade with him, like you saw with Francisco Rivera, or they're going to have to block some shots, try to deflect them, and move out immediately, like you saw with John Dodson. And then we go to Bryan Kelleher, who is a much more well-rounded fighter. Now, Kelleher isn't especially notable anywhere in his game, He's just skilled in all areas, there's not one thing he does so well. Other than, I would probably say, his switch fighting game is pretty unorthodox, at least. He'll switch all the time, and sometimes when he switches, there'll be a pattern that the opponent can get on him where he'll switch and settle and throw a kick. He usually does that, like you saw in the Renan Barão fight. But his angles and his footwork is very weird. He'll throw a jab, switch, right hook, and exit. He'll leap in behind the jab, switch and leap in with the uppercut, and then throw a kick and then exit out after that. He's good with the double legs, all that kind of stuff. Pretty traditional in his grappling. But my prediction for the fight, I'm going to go with John Lineker, and I'm going to go by a decision. Now, I think it's going to be a pretty close fight because I think the footwork and the awkward angles from Kelleher could actually win him this fight. I could see this fight actually being like a controversial call, the way that John Lineker marches forward, and I think the judges might give him more points just for being the aggressor. But I see Kelleher just kind of outpointing him and just moving away and allowing Lineker to walk him down and pressure him and all that kind of stuff. Maybe Lineker catches him a couple times as Kelleher runs into a couple shots, but I see this being a cat and mouse game, and I see the judges giving it to Lineker. Then we go to Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Cooper. Now, this is an interesting fight. A lot of people are really high on Mackenzie Dern, but I think people are really sleepy on the matchup and the stylistic threat that Amanda Cooper has against Mackenzie Dern. As you see from Mackenzie Dern, she is one of the highest level BJJ practitioners in the world. She does everything well there. She's so fast on the ground. She's always scrambling for things. Her precision on position is excellent. Her timing on transitioning, everything she does is just almost perfect on the ground, right? But she has a very wild striking game, and it could be dealt with a more experienced boxer like Amanda Cooper. And Mackenzie Dern's takedowns have not been impressive at all. She drives it to the cage, and she has a hard time getting the legs out from under the opponent. It's almost like she's working on one thing at a time, where you have to be multitasking against the cage, right? She's working on one thing, and then she moves to another, and then that thing that she was working on before, the fighter is able to defend it after she moves on, to the next thing. And it's just almost like an endless loop for Mackenzie Dern trying to get these takedowns. And even for someone like Amanda Cooper, who has been taken down plenty of times in her career, she just really has to work on that. Just take down defense, right? It's a very obvious thing she has to work on against Mackenzie Dern because Amanda Cooper is much more experienced in striking, boxed for a while, just naturally a better striker. And Mackenzie Dern, when she throws these wild strikes, haymakers and wild kicks, long range strikes, leaves her chin up, no real defense at all. Someone who could throw shots on the inside of Cooper and keep that distance and stay composed under the shots could give Dern some problems. So I think this fight's going to be a lot closer than people think it is. But my prediction for the fight, I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern. But I think it's going to be a very close fight. I will not be surprised at all if Amanda Cooper wins this fight. A part of me is actually expecting Amanda Cooper to win this fight. So I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern. I'm going to go by a third round submission. I think eventually she'll be able to take down Cooper and then secure a submission right away. And then we go to the fight everybody's waiting for in this card. I also think the best fight in the card by far, Jacare Souza versus Kelvin Gastelum. This fight means a lot for the middleweight division. I think the winner of this is going to get a title shot. You got Jacare coming off that Derek Brunson knockout. That was super impressive. I believe in that fight he switched camps, and it really showed, man. Striking looks better than before. He relies a lot on power shots, though. He doesn't set things up too well, besides just a jab and then the overhand, it's very obvious combos that he's looking for. And a guy like Kelvin Gastelum, who is so natural in the boxing, it's going to be hard for Jacare to find those shots on him. And Kelvin's way faster, way better footwork, in and out movements, and he has power, man. So Jacare is going to have some problems on the feet if he tries to set up the way he always does. But Jacare is one of the best BJJ practitioners to ever compete in MMA. Very aggressive, top pressure style of BJJ. Very different than the other guys like Verdum and Brian Ortega, and Damian Maia is kind of similar in some ways, but those other guys, they're a little bit different than Jacare. Jacare keeps this pressure and this aggression with his BJJ that's pretty much unseen through a lot of these guys in the UFC. He breaks to position with pressure. He's very good at even using the cage to transition, something a lot of people don't do. He'll walk on the cage, feet up high, head into the chest of the opponent. Very good at snatching submissions as well. I'm kind of questioning where his chin's going to be for this fight because he did get starched by Robert Whittaker, and he is getting older. I don't know how much damage he's been taking in training. Now, throughout his fighting career, he hasn't taken too much damage outside of Whittaker and Yoel Romero, but he's going to be fighting a heavy-handed, faster striker like Kelvin. Kelvin is really good takedown defense. But Jacare's takedowns are very powerful. He bulldozes opponents with his double legs. He's really good at working on the cage, and I think that's the best way he's going to get down Kelvin. Just use his size and strength over Kelvin. But then you go to Kelvin Gastelum, who was at first a wrestler, right? He came into the sport as a wrestler, but he's developed his boxing game. He doesn't kick a whole lot. He'll throw some body kicks there and there, but it's his boxing. His ability to draw out strikes from the opponent, counter them, his ability to land a 1-2. He's a southpaw fighter as well. Really good at keeping the outside foot to land that left hand down the middle that he's really good at using. Even the left overhand like he landed on Chris Weidman. I mean, he's putting down guys with really good chins as well. Really good with mixing up the jab and the right hook for the setup. But it's really just right, left. Right, left. That's kind of his pattern, right? Throws the right hand and then the left. That's usually the only way he goes. He doesn't really go right, left, or any other general pattern for his boxing. So it's going to be very curious to see how Jacare is going to deal with that, how he trained for that. But my prediction for the fight, this is a really tough fight to call. It's going to depend if Kelvin can stop those takedowns. He's got the fight, but if Jacare takes Kelvin down, I don't think Kelvin's going to do too well in the bottom. So I'm going to go with Jacare. I think he's going to get tagged in the feet in the first round, though. I think he's going to get hurt. But I think he's going to find the takedown, though, under Kelvin's shots. And like you saw with Chris Weidman was able to control Kelvin on the ground very easily. And I think Jacare is going to do it that much easier. And I think he's going to find the submission probably in the first or second round. Around where Jacare is getting tagged, I think Jacare is going to get it to the ground. So whenever that happens, I think that's when the fight's going to end. So then we go to the main event. Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington. A lot of people are really down on this fight. I understand because we were said to have Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg, and that didn't deliver. So now we're getting something less. But you got Amanda Nunes, one of the best female fighters of all time. Amazing striking, outside boxing, great footwork, very fluid with her footwork. Really athletic in there. Her takedowns really come from the clinch, really good with her judo, trips, and all that kind of stuff. Very strong, too, in everything she does. Her clinch work, the way she blocks, the way she lands punches. Everything is so powerful, but the drawback from that is her cardio. Now, in her last fight with Shevchenko, she was able to use her reach, and by using that reach, she was able to conserve her energy, able to keep Shevchenko at bay for most of the fight, and also being the aggressor, which helps, too. So that's not something she's going to have in this fight. Raquel Pennington is a fighter that almost always exclusively marches forward at the opponent. I see no different in this fight. The only thing that I think could get Pennington to back up if she eats a big shot early on, because Amanda Nunes by far hits harder than everybody else in this division. Nunes is a very strong right cross, good left hook, good uppercuts. Her teeps are very powerful as well. They snap really quickly. Her leg kicks could be alarming, and I could see her getting taken down because of those, because she almost tries to sweep with them. You know, they're a little bit too long sometimes, and she gets off balance when she does that. You saw that Miesha Tate fight. That could be alarming if she gets taken down because of that, and then gets drawn out. Pennington's going to march her down, and the distance on those leg kicks are going to close in the more Raquel marches forward at her. But Nunes has very good footwork to complement her striking. Good at lateral movements off the lead hand to land the right hand. I mean, she does everything very well. Then you go Raquel Pennington, who's just, I would say, more of a swarmer. People want to say a brawler. I would say a swarmer than anything. She's pretty good with her counter shots, pulling on punches. But she really does that in really close range, and the reach of Amanda Nunes is not going to give her that option. If she tries to pull on that long jab of Nunes, she's going to get caught by the right hand. But the best way Raquel's going to win this fight is just make this dirty. Get in the clinch, dirty box, I think is the best way to go. Drive her into the cage, just roughen her up. I mean, you got to get through that distance. That long range distance is the deciding factor in this fight. If Amanda Nunes can keep that, she's going to win this fight. If Raquel can close on it, then it gets interesting. Raquel also, she's pretty good with some submissions. If you guys don't remember her bulldog choke, I mean, that was insane. Very strong as well, powerful in the clinch. Like you saw with Miesha Tate, able to lift her with those guillotines, with those headlocks. But my prediction for the fight, I'm going to go with Amanda Nunes. I'm going to go by a decision. I think Raquel's going to be tough enough and have a good enough chin. Take some of those shots and just gas out Nunes. And I think Raquel might win like the 4th, maybe even the 5th round as Nunes starts to gas out from the pressure. But I think Nunes is going to win the first 3 pretty handily. So those are my predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe. I'm also going to have 2 more prediction videos coming out. I'm going to have the Bellator video, and then I'm going to have Lomachenko versus Linares coming out too. So be on the lookout for those. And then After that, I'm going to break down one of the fights coming up this weekend, or maybe even two. We'll see. There's a lot going on this weekend, so be on the lookout for that as well, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.